Shalini, how are you this morning? Actually, it's not even morning, it's the afternoon.
I'm very well. Thank you very much, Victor. It's really very nice to be speaking to you and a pleasure to be speaking to you today.
You know, the time has passed by very fast, very quickly since we met in London when we were receiving awards for fast growing businesses in the United Kingdom. And I found the people who were speaking there just fascinating. And I'm really glad that several people really recommended that I speak with you and invite you to come onto the show because we like to showcase females who are making a really important difference in the startup ecosystems in the United Kingdom, the United States, and Barcelona. And clearly, your resume is very powerful. So I wanted to go ahead and give you a chance, if you don't mind, maybe introduce yourself for like 5-10 seconds, and then we'll pop into the questions that we have.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Victor. So as you said, I'm Shalini. I founded E2E in 2011. So we've been going for nearly 13 years now. Who I am is I'm a person who's very passionate about making a difference, helping others to become the best version of themselves. And I'm obsessed about entrepreneurship and supporting entrepreneurs. I'm privileged to be running my own business and I'm surrounded by very good people, Victor, which is, it keeps me going. It's the driver. I sit on the Mayor of London's Business Advisory Board, and I'm a non-exec to a few different businesses. But my main day-to-day business is trying to influence the lives of scale-up entrepreneurs, firstly in the UK and then internationally through what we do. And it's not just me, it's me and my team, Victor, at E2E.
Absolutely. You make a big point of that, particularly when you're speaking. You're very quickly pointing out that there's always a team of people behind you, even if one person seems to be getting the recognition, but the work couldn't get done without a very valid team. So yes. Can I ask you, what started you on your journey as a CEO?
It's actually it's an interesting story. I always loved watching people, someone like Brent Hoberman, Richard Branson, these sorts of people who'd taken a lot of risk and set up their own companies. And in the year 1999, I was watching lastminute.com grow. And I had an idea, which was to set up the world's first company to trade finance instruments. I was in trade finance for the majority of my career prior to going into entrepreneurship. So I was fortunate because myself and three other gentlemen, we left Deutsche Bank and we set up the world's first company to trade finance instruments online. And this was a long time ago, it's 1999, 2000, and we exited in 2004. But it's actually when I joined the private equity arm of a company called Lloyd's Banking Group. It's LDC, Lloyd's TSB Development Capital. Sure. I saw entrepreneurship done in a different way to what I had done. So I thought, why don't I help entrepreneurs to learn from each other? Because when I did it, we were very insular. We had a very strong team, but we didn't have a huge network. We didn't have a non-exec board. We didn't raise money externally. So by being at LDC, it gave me the opportunity to see how others did it better than I did. So learning from my mistakes, really, I decided to set up an organization to help entrepreneurs get connected to other entrepreneurs. And really because I was working in a private equity house, and at the time there were some great businesses supporting startups, I pitched E2E very much at supporting scale-ups. And I was fortunate because LDC backed me. They gave me the funding to really launch the business and grow the business. So the birth of this organization was understanding the things I should have done differently in my first venture, which helped me to create my second venture, if that makes sense.
Okay, quick thing, if I may ask, because one of the things I've been helping companies raise capital both from London as well as in Spain and then here in Barcelona. And right. One of the things that I didn't realize until I actually started doing it is that what comprises a startup versus a scale-up is these are very different sizes, whether if you're in the US, UK, or in Barcelona. So what is a scale-up to you? What's the difference between startup and scale-up?
So scale-up, how we define it, is really a company that's reached its 1 million sort of turnover level. It's growing 20% year on year. It has minimum of 5 employees. So that's industry definition of a scale up here in the UK. The way I like to look at it is the founder looking to scale? So it can be an early stage company, but have they got the ambition, the drive, the passion, and are they creating something to scale, or are they happy just to run a one man business? So rather than a micro business, are they looking to create a medium size, hence scale up, and then larger business? So that's
Okay,
how
that
we
was
look.
very, very eloquently put. Thank you so much.
No, for sure.
So, in your career, I think you may have already kind of danced into this one, but the next question has to do with a pivotal moment in your career that really is the impetus for you to start doing new work in your approach to leadership and decision making. Is there something that triggered a change in what you were doing?
Yeah, so I mean, going back a few years, I kind of mentioned that I left Deutsche Bank to set up this company. So there was two triggers. One trigger was the fact that when I saw how trade finance was done historically, I felt that this could be done in a more tech-enabled way, hence building a technology business to allow trade finance instruments to be traded online. And the reason being is bonds at the time were traded online, equities traded online, but not what we call letters of credit. So that for me was one trigger. The other trigger was actually being influenced and inspired by those people who had started building those businesses. So not just people like Brent Hoberman and Richard Branson. There's so many entrepreneurs at the time who were in that dot-com time setting up businesses. So that was the other trigger, is being influenced and inspired by others who are taking that journey. And by running your own business, you have the ability to make change. So that was a driver. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. My father is a surgeon. My mother it's from the education sector. But I mean, it's something I learned from them is do things the best you can, be the best version of yourself. So that DNA, I think, is very important DNA in entrepreneurship.
Well, that leads perfectly into the next question. It's almost like you're reading my mind here. In a situation where things are constantly evolving, business landscapes, how do you stay innovative and adapt to changes while maintaining, I guess, true to your values, maintaining yourself, the core values of your company and to yourself?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Victor. It's a great question. It's not an easy question, actually, because I think it's important to look at technology as an enabler, but not as the solution for everything. So you've got to stay core to your values. For us, our values are around making sure people connect, and therefore we have to use technology to enable that connectivity, to make it speedy, but we can't get away from our core activity, which is our physical events. The physical events are the way that people genuinely make relationships, but then the technology enable them to stay in touch thereafter, find investment, find NEDs, etc. So we are actually in the process of, I've done 2 fundraising rounds during COVID of building our own technology to enable, because at the moment people use LinkedIn, etc. within our own community. So we're building our own technology. So another thing I think is very important, and I've learned through the privilege of working with a lot of these great entrepreneurs, is they read a lot. They listen to podcasts, they listen to interviews, the thing that we're doing today, the great work that you're doing with Barcelona Metropolitan. It's very important that we are plugged in, tuned in, aware of what's happening, and that comes from reading, learning, etc., but also staying connected. Being in the right environments, being part of communities. So if you become too insular, you could lose out, and therefore being educated is very important. And some of the most impressive entrepreneurs, we did a dinner just before Christmas with Sir Martin Sorrell, and I think he must be in his late 70s, early 80s. And I was completely blown away with the fact that he had said the amount he'd learned in just traveling to different countries, whether it was Brazil or India or North America, where he had traveled within a period of 2 weeks to about 8 different countries. It felt like this. And he shared a lot of learning from being in these different environments. And I'm not saying you have to travel to all these places, but what it taught me is it doesn't matter what stage you are, that lifelong learning is critical to our success. So I think that's part of staying innovative and adapting um, to be as successful as we can be.
Okay. Well, actually, you hit a sensitive nerve because I was asked to join a board here in Barcelona of an
Mm-hmm.
organization whose raison d'être is to identify Catalans, local, Barcelonians who have part of the diaspora around the world who are doing really great things, but still want to stay tech connected to Barcelona, and then also English speakers out of the United Kingdom, Ireland, the United States, Australia, who are coming to Catalonia or Barcelona to do good things, whether it's innovation in areas of health and technology or design and architecture, but it's recognizing this constant need of lifelong learning and I think a commitment to innovative techniques to maintain the companies don't forget about people as we're starting to move towards a lot more artificial intelligence. At the end of the day, you still need to have people there. And this brings me to the next question that I had, and it had to do
Mm-hmm.
with diversity and equity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious because I used to hear a lot about it, but then it started. I don't hear as much as I used to, and now I'm starting to see another crescendo again. So, can you talk
Mm-hmm.
about? I would imagine DEI is very important within your organization, and can you talk about the cultures and strategies that you use to foster DEI?
Certainly. Firstly, I think I'd just like to comment on what you were saying. For me, the ultimate nirvana is when we don't have to talk about it, because that means it's become part of the everyday uh, um, life cycle or DNA of how we work, and therefore um, female equality, diversity, etc., shouldn't be a topic that we would need to talk about. So the fact that we still are means there's still a need to make improvement in terms of fostering it. The way that I guess I'm fortunate because I try and do things in a way to find the best people within my business, and I don't put quotas to say, look, I need this many people from this nationality or this gender. I'm always trying to find the best people, and we're fortunate that we've actually got a good mix of both men and women. And in terms of diversity, we've got staff from Brazil, from Romania, from Venezuela, from India, and the UK. So we've been fortunate. But I would suggest that you 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 foster this by finding the right talent. You keep an eye on it. But as small businesses, what we have to do is find the right people, and we shouldn't really be just ticking boxes to make sure that we've got everything represented that way. I think focus on what's important for your success, and then those things will follow.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. One of the challenges that I've seen is here in Barcelona and around the world. I don't want to isolate Barcelona, but we've seen
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lot of talk about and about DEI, but when things get tight, the
Mm-hmm.
values of the company seem to show themselves more truly when things are going bad.
Right.
And from what I've been reading is a lot of the diversity, equity, inclusion hires, which already sounds kind of bad, are the first ones to be let go.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I see
Oh gosh. Okay.
whether a company is basically they're not really staying true to these values of DEI, and so what you're talking about is to really
Mm-hmm.
truly foster one within the organization that can stand the test of time. When things are going great, everything's easy. It's when things are
Yeah.
going bad that you have to maintain a commitment to, I guess, having a staff that is truly diverse and
Yeah.
inclusive. When
Yeah.
things are
No,
growing,
that's yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. And I think if you are going through a tough time, it's very important to keep that in check. The reason being is I think companies, and we know the statistics, that actually by having a diverse team, a diverse leadership team, a diverse staff, companies tend to perform better. So you may perform better in the short run by not having that diversity, but it's surely known that diversity brings long-term success and long-term strength. So I would encourage anyone who's going through a tough time that not to let go on the people they might have filled in the quota for, is to think long-term and carefully on that.
well, you started talking about short term and long term, and look at the next question right there. is how do you balance short-term objectives with long-term vision? And how do you, as a CEO, set the example and implement these strategies for other people to follow?
Yeah, so again, Victor, I've been fortunate. I think one of the pieces of advice I'd like to give to entrepreneurs, especially earlier stage or mid-sized businesses, is actually very important to have strong advisory board or strong advisors around you to build your long-term strategy. I'm very fortunate that we have a board of 14 entrepreneurs from different backgrounds. They sit on my advisory board. I also have an external advisor. He recently sold his business for 1.5 billion. We pay him a fee to actually work with us, and he helps me and my leadership team to keep on track about our long-term vision. And then my COO, she's very, very pinned to making sure we have our roadmaps, our weekly KPIs, our monthly KPIs, our short-term goals, to make sure that we're delivering in the short term towards the long-term plan. So I'd say it's very much about, one is you've got to be clear on your strategy, you've got to be clear on your financial projections, where you need to get to, invest in having an advisor, invest in having a financial manager or an FD, and we shouldn't underestimate the importance of those two roles in a company. And then having an operating officer that can help you execute with timelines, measurables, and deliverables is key to staying on track and not deviating away from what your plans are, because it's very easy to deviate, especially in a business like mine.
Yes, I am. Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because in some of the more successful organizations that I've either been a part of, or founded, one of the things I was very happy with is to implement a board of advisors myself,
Great.
who can really open doors. And the strategy that I used, I don't know, it might be different from yours, because some of the organizations I was with were NGOs, and we had like no revenue or very little revenue, so we really didn't have enough to pay them. But the technique that I did was to try to gather people who were industry leaders, but in different sectors, and offer the ability for them to come together just 2 or 3 times a year.
Yep.
But I would pay for their dinner for them to come and network with other people at their level. So it's kind of networking, but a very exclusive networking group. But because they were motivated to meet with other people, and people who I would have assumed would require to get paid, I was very pleasantly surprised that as long as you truly valued their time and took notes and tried to implement what they told you, because they're not just going to give you pats on the back, they're going to say, "Oh man, you're really screwing up here," or "This is something that you haven't thought about," or "You better do this because this is a risk that you're not aware of." These are people who have really true, great vision in your sector, or sometimes in areas that you didn't even know you could be making an impact. But all they really want is to be valued. And sometimes, shooting for the very extremely well-known people, or leaders in their field, might seem like a difficult ask. I have found it not to be as difficult as one might think. What you can't do is expect them to do something for nothing, but that something that you give them is really respect. And so anyway, I'm really glad you brought it up. One of the challenges, because when I was going through your CV and your list of accomplishments, just right there on LinkedIn, wow, you just blow the doors off of buildings with what you've been able to accomplish, and the I guess the awards that you've been given. But since you've been in a position to have an impact in many startups, can you talk about maybe either a failure or a difficult decision that you had to make, and how you navigated through it?
Certainly, I can. Firstly, thank you very much. You've been very kind in what you've said, and I really appreciate very much what you've said. Let me give you one example. So this is about fundraising. I always set up E2E to help entrepreneurs. I never really thought of it as in the beginning as about a machine to make money. I realized that actually without making money, I couldn't keep the team I needed. I couldn't grow the business I needed. And therefore, I actually decided to do my first fundraising round in 2019. And the money came in on the 17th of, it was drip feeding in, but the last check came in on the 17th of March. 2020, and we hit COVID in 20th of March 2020. And I'm just being very honest with you, I did not know what to do. I didn't know whether these investors who had parted with their hard-earned cash into my business would have done it, knowing that COVID was around the corner. So I decided that the best thing for me to do would be to call an emergency meeting of my board and speak to them as a group, and then speak to them as one-on-one, whether they still wanted to stay as an investor. So I gave them the opportunity to take their money back, because reputation, doing things the right way is very, very important. So that was a very difficult decision to actually offer their money back, because it took so much hard work to raise the funds. But I'm really glad I did it, because none of them took their money back. They all gave me more confidence than I had in myself. And they really said, no, we've invested, we understand the risks investing, but we also feel that if this is the time for you to kind of grow the business now. And they've done a second fundraising round in the business since as well. So that was a hugely difficult decision around whether to keep the investment. And it took me a time, and maybe, this is a learning, that actually I should have started the fundraising process many years earlier than I did, Victor. And we've been talking about, prior to going live, about female entrepreneurship. And I'd just like to raise a point that I think us women, sometimes we're, including myself, being very, very risk averse, and not as strong in terms of taking risk. And I'm wondering whether that's right or wrong, but actually that's perhaps part of who we are, or who I am. And we launched yesterday, I'm doing something where we profile the fastest growing companies, private companies in the UK. So yesterday in the Independent newspaper in the UK, we launched the Female 100. So it's the top female-led businesses in the UK by employee growth rate. And the majority of 5 million plus turnover businesses, a lot of them 20 million plus turnover businesses. And we had an online session this morning. And actually, we were talking about the fact that we need to encourage women to take more risk, to make these sorts of decisions. So I'm sharing that with you because you have a great female following as well. So perhaps that's a little bit of a learning. But that's probably one of the most difficult decisions, was one, fundraising, and then two, offering the money back.
Well, as somebody who has dedicated a lot of time to helping young companies raise capital, I understand. Actually, it's one thing to do it in the United Kingdom or in London and the United States. Mm-hmm. In Barcelona, access to capital is really tough. So I understand very well that the difficulty of getting it, and the prospect of maybe offering to give it back in the face of what nobody knew was going to be a success or failure, or how long it was going to last. That really was a really tough decision. I can appreciate that. So I'm really glad you shared that with me. The other thing that really touched is I've been a mentor and a coach to female entrepreneurs for the last 3 or 4 years, almost exclusively with women. And I prefer to deal with women now, Shalini, because the following things. I can help women, or I can help entrepreneurs in 3 areas: capital raising, sales acceleration, and personal brand, like growing your personal network. Okay. And what I found is that when I deal with my female entrepreneurs, and you don't want to press everybody with the same brush, but you do start to see some generalizations or trends. Women who come for my help, they let it out. They tell me what they need, and we can get to work. When I've worked with men, the funny thing is they really push hard for me to work with them. And then we spend the first 3 or 4 weeks, they're trying to prove to me that they don't need my help, which is, why did you come to me in the first place? Maybe men, the classic imposter syndrome, sometimes I think gets a bad rap. I mean, the women, I think, certainly suffer more from it. But, the imposter syndrome, I can serve to help you understand what your challenges truly are. Of course, there's a perspective that women need to, I think we need to get women to be less afraid to deal with some of these challenges, but we also need examples and role models for them to follow and to see it. So I'm really thrilled about the work that you're doing, and it couldn't be any more relevant to us. So what you said is totally resonated because my boss is a woman. My boss is my wife. She's the editor of
Okay.
the magazine, and
Okay.
she also, with the way that she runs business, she's very risk averse. So in areas where I want to be a lot more aggressive, maybe throw some money at it, maybe raise capital, my wife is no. We just increase through just increase sales, even if it's smaller but manageable. She wants a long-term play, which I
Yeah.
think is perhaps if you're going to generalize that, that really goes to the statistics that show that female-run companies outpace male-run companies in terms of profitability and longevity. And I think these are fascinating things to discuss. So I'm really glad that what you said, because it does
Thank you.
resonate very much with me and with our organization.
Well, can I
Also,
congratulate you? Can I congratulate you for supporting so many women yourself, Victor? It's really nice to hear that. I didn't know that you were mentoring so many. On the subject of, you talked about imposter syndrome. One of our ambassadors, her name is Rita Clifton. She's Rita Clifton CBE. She's the deputy chairman of the John Lewis Partnership.
okay.
I'd recommend reading her book. It's called Love Your Imposter. She's the author of that. She launched it maybe 4 years ago now, and it's all about your imposter syndrome and who you are, and coming out of your shell in many ways. So I think it's worth reading if anyone has
I'll definitely recommend it.
yeah.
Dealing with imposter syndrome and still trying to be, I guess, true to your core values in your faith, because you want to have integrity, you want to have authenticity. But if you know that you're not good at sales, or you're just not as competitive as you would like to be, you also don't want to leave opportunities out there just because somebody else claims that they're good enough, and you kind of hide in the background. You may not get an opportunity to win those. So this is one of the reasons I really like working with the Professional Women's Network of Barcelona, the PWN Barcelona, and the Barcelona Women's Network. We've been supporters for like 15 years, and we have some amazing young entrepreneurs that are doing fantastic things in different, I guess, verticals. And this is why I was really impressed when we were in London together, because I just saw this fantastic. I don't know if did you get the chance to meet the vegan patty lady,
No, I
Natalia?
didn't. I didn't. No.
Oh, okay. Mr. Squibb and
Okay.
here they introduced a woman to me who is doing vegan patties. She's from Jamaica, and she's actually, I've decided to go ahead and try to give her more visibility. So she's trying to send her stuff to us here, and Natalia is going to be trying to showcase her wares here. But she's a growing, albeit young and early stage entrepreneur. We got to help each other, whether you're male or female. But right now, as
Yeah,
you were talking
absolutely.
about, the
Yeah.
the vast majority of capital goes to men-run companies or male-run companies that don't have a lot of diversity into it. So I don't know that our magazine is going to make a big difference, Shalini, but I think it's worth the effort. I don't know if we can move the needle,
You
but darn it,
can.
I think it's worth
Yeah.
it. And women companies tend to last longer, so let's help them do that job.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you. No,
And then,
absolutely. But Victor, I'd say that it takes, lots of, you're doing an amazing job to do this. It takes a lot of us collectively to move the dial, and we will. So if each of us says, yes, we're going to move the dial, it's that collective energy, that collective power, that collective education that will do it. So we've all got to make that small difference to make a bigger collective difference.
fantastic. I
Yeah,
do have one question. One of the
sure.
things that I think is mythical, or a bad myth, is that
Mhm.
women in technology don't mix as well as men with technology. So I'd like to understand your role, your plays on technology, how it's shaping your industry, and how to leverage emerging technologies to stay ahead of the curve. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Yes, certainly. I actually, it's a very important topic. I think I would say that probably women in technology hasn't mixed as well historically, but I would say it's changing very quickly. And there's a huge push in the UK to get more women in STEM, more women in science, more women in technology. And I think with the development of technology, the way it's happening, my 6-year-old nephew and 7-year-old niece, they're going to be very technically abled by the time they're 10, which
Yeah.
probably I was when I was 20 something. So it's changing that our youth. So there's much more parity between men and women now in terms of technology, and I think I see that landscape becoming more flat in terms of gender diversity over the next few years, and it's frightening what you can learn through AI. And my own team are teaching me how to use things like Chat GPT and different tools. They're younger than me. They're just more hip and happening, and I'm learning myself. So I would say, as you know, I'm not a technologist. I'm lucky to be surrounded by a good tech team developing my own technology, but I'm definitely not that. But I would say my niece, who's 7, she will be as good as my nephew, who's 6, if not better, because of the way that our personal interests are changing. Hopefully that kind of answers. Does that answer your question, Victor?
Well, I mean, I would kind of completely agree. So I would say yes.
Okay.
And to stay on a more positive note, my girls are now, they're a little bit older than I think it sounds like your nephew niece, but I remember my daughter was encouraged to leave the school that she was at because they felt that she was stronger in the sciences than the current school, which is already a pretty good school,
Right.
could give her, and they wanted her to not avoid challenging herself. And so she
Mm-hmm.
went to another school, which was more competitive. For the first time in my life, I saw my daughter a little bit intimidated because she realized that the level was higher. And I asked her about the sciences in her class. She says, "Well, there's 38 kids in my class, and it was advanced sciences, advanced chemistry, math, engineering, computer programming. Out of the 38 students, 36 were women or young women.
Amazing.
They were
Okay.
16, 17, 18." And I was like, holy moly, this is fantastic. This is a great sign of things to come. But we're still not quite there yet. So we still got a
Yeah.
lot of work to be doing.
Yeah.
And, on that subject,
Mm-hmm.
aspiring entrepreneurs, we talk about the importance of role models. They're looking up to CEOs for inspiration, for techniques, strategies, maybe anecdotes and stories where they have things have gone wrong, and there's a sharing is caring when it comes up. Have you ever attended an organization called Fuck Up Nights by any chance?
Uh, do you mean the one run by Steven Sachs?
Well, I know the ones in Barcelona and Spain, but it's an organization that was founded by 3 Mexicans in Mexico City.
No, I haven't. But there's something similar that's been started in London, which some people have spoken about, but I haven't been. No.
Oh, I strongly recommend. It's a fantastic
Okay.
evening.
Okay.
Because it's not the nicest words to use, but that's what it's called. It's fuck up nights, and you go, and they usually have 2 or 3 people who share a 7-minute story. It's very well timed, and they
Uh-huh.
talk about a major screw up in their career or a mistake that they made. But instead of laughing at them, you're laughing with them. So you have these anecdotes. It's usually the pain points that somebody has. I actually do a lot of work with an organization called Startup Grind, and I've been
Yes,
to London.
I've spoken for them. Yeah, they're a great
Okay,
organization. Yeah.
so the people in Mexico City that were regular attendees of Startup Grind one day said,
Mm-hmm.
"This is great. We have these people who are inspirational to us, but 90% of us, our companies are struggling. We don't have the success that she has or that he has. We want to learn from people who are going through that are still stuck in the trenches like us,
Yeah.
and we'll learn from those lessons more than the success. Because sometimes
Yeah.
all you really see is the success. You didn't see the hours and the midnights and the crying and the tears and the money that is lost and the relationships and the divorces that
Yeah.
happen on the way to success."
Yes.
And anyway, if you have a chance, I strongly recommend it. And if you don't
Okay.
have it there or you don't have one organized, I invite you to come to Barcelona or Madrid and come
Okay.
to one of ours, because I will gladly take you.
Oh,
But
amazing.
anyway,
Thank you.
I wanted to see if you could give some advice to someone who's starting on their journey as a business leader, and maybe some experiences or anecdotes of yours that you think really would make a difference.
Yeah. So firstly, I think, we talked about lifelong learning. I think we're in a very privileged environment at the moment, because you can actually learn a lot from podcasts, from reading, from hearing videos. Everything is available on the internet these days. So in terms of quick learning, I think invest the time to go out there. You talked about the various different networks in Barcelona. Make the time. Always go with an objective. What are you going to learn? Try to learn, but how are you going to follow up? Because I say to our members, we run 40, 50 events a year, is you're making an investment of your time every time you come to a dinner or come to a reception. It's the follow up that's really important. So make sure you do follow up with somebody, at least one person, ideally more than that, who you keep connected with, and that becomes a relationship. I think all of this is very good, but it's also very important to say to our youth to stay authentic, to have the belief in yourself, to build your own self brand, to trust your gut. Our gut is a combination of our life's experiences, and that's, listen to your gut. So learn as much as you can, absorb as much as you can, trust in what you want to do, but be very, very honest with yourself. That if something isn't going well, go and get that advice. If you're struggling with something, don't sit in your home or in your company on your own. Go and talk to people, do something about it. And it's easier said than done, but not to take life too seriously. You know, we see a lot of people going through mental stress, and especially as entrepreneurs, we don't talk about it enough. It's there are a lot of dark days. You mentioned it, sleepless nights, running out of money, and trying to keep the perspective that we have one life. These things will happen. It's part of the tapestry, and we have to find ways to come out of it. And it's usually through being surrounded by good people you can do that. But having a small community that you can talk to and air these concerns with, it makes a huge difference. So, in terms of myself, I have dark days. I have days where I think, goodness, am I going to get there? Am I going to, for example, build the business that gives me and my investors a decent return? Am I going to be able to leave a legacy with this business, where we have difficult days in terms of selling, pricing? We're always talking as a team. Should we adjust this? Should we adjust that? We're having those conversations at the moment. And somehow I've got to find the energy or something deep inside me to say, I can keep going. So I have those days often, and I keep talking to myself, but I'm surrounded by good people as well. And that's a privilege of running U2E, is it is a big network now, and there's a lot of good people out there to keep energizing me and making sure that those batteries keep charged, including my immediate team. So I think these things make a difference. And where you don't have a team, where you don't have these advisors, hopefully it's your family, or it's in your inner self, and having that inner strength to say, actually, tenacity as an entrepreneur, tenacity is probably the most important ingredient in many ways, is try not to give up, try and find a different way, try to be adapt, and adapt.
Fantastic. I only have one last question for you, Shalini.
Sure.
I know that we're in Barcelona, and I do have an audience in the UK and in the United States. It's actually growing much faster. But and Barcelona and Spain is most of where my I guess audience is and readers. What can we do to help your organization?
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I think if we could look at maybe doing some events together. We've got members in Barcelona. Maybe we could look at one or two events in Barcelona together. Maybe we could invite some of your members to enjoy the things that we're doing here, which would be good both ways. That would be very helpful. So for your community in Barcelona to get to know our community in London, and our community in London to get to know your community in Barcelona.
Well, fantastic. Pre-COVID, I was going once a month, or at least every other month, to London. I have a little place that I stay in Hampstead, and so I was going quite a bit. Now I think I want to start picking up that cadence again. Perhaps we can meet one day there, and I would love to invite you and maybe some of your team to some cavas and tapas right here in Barcelona. If you want to get away from some of the rainy weather there.
Yes.
And we do, we organized an event. It was the first event that was sanctioned by the city, that was permitted by the Council of Barcelona. It was called Working Women Week, and it was supposed to be like 15 women, that 3 for each night of the week. But Shalini, the network grew so fast, and people get all excited. We had 75 speakers, like after 3 days of just announcing that we wanted to do this. and it turned out to be a huge thing. And my daughter, who had never spoken before, she's a little mini influencer here. She had the
Oh,
biggest audience by far. She grew to like 3 million followers, like really fast.
3
And
million.
yeah,
Wow.
and so what we want to do is to repeat it again, but we want to have a more international flavor. So what you're
Okay.
saying is maybe we can talk offline and figure out
Yeah.
how to help. But between Metropolitan as well as the PWN, which is the Professional Women's Network, and the Barcelona Women's Network, I'm sure we can do a fantastic job and do a nice kickoff to add value to members internationally. What do you think about that?
I like that idea very much. I think it's a great
Okay.
idea. Let's talk about it offline.
Okay. Well, Shalini, thank you so much. It's been lovely speaking with you. I hope to
Thanks.
see you again soon in London. And again, the offer is genuine. I want to see you here in Barcelona. And with that, just have a fantastic weekend. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I'm in awe of what you're doing.